for a little bit before we jump into what we're going to do. So fire away, anything goes.
Okay. I remember you said spasmophilia was for splinting. Was that splinting of ligaments, muscles, or help me?
Yes, splinting can happen actually anywhere in the body, but it's usually around a joint. Organs can splint too, but you wouldn't necessarily call it splinting. You would call, it's just basically like kind of like clamping down or tension. And a lot of times it's not like a segment of the organ, it's the whole organ itself. And so the ANS and the higher consciousness actually reduce a lot of the tension in the internal organs because they're smooth muscle. So splinting usually is going to happen in and around a joint that's either compromised or there's been an injury, so there's either degeneration or an injury that has happened. Now, the thing that can happen is the tissue can be kind of like hyperreactive. And so a moderate amount of pressure or activity or even like stress on the emotions and things like that will actually start to throw like an area into like a spasm. And a lot of the times that I've seen that, it's almost always been in the neck. You don't see it too much in the low back. Although I have seen it, I'd say probably 75–80% of the time it's usually neck related, like base of the skull down into the shoulder.
Yeah.
And I've seen it be quite debilitating where it becomes very hard to treat. And they've done trying to do like neurological re-education of the nerve and there was a theory floating around for a while that it was even tied to like a virus like shingles or something like that. And I don't think that's the case, but I mean, it was one of those things that you almost have to explore it for a little bit just to rule it out. But to say splinting is one way of understanding it, but a deeper level of spasmophilia is just any sort of activity will just throw the tissue into like a sort of spasm, so like say you hurt your shoulder, you'll notice that you don't use it as much and you don't try to move it around as much. It's like the muscles around it kind of tighten up. Yeah. And after the injury goes away, the person will still be very gentle with that joint. Yeah. And so that all forms of that is considered splinting or spasmophilia.
Good. Thank you. Second question. Sometimes I process things from my own little filtered space.
Of course, we all do it. Yeah.
I know, but I was like you to re-educate me in reference to higher consciousness, the oil. I thought I heard you say or process that it helps even if you don't know what it's for.
It does. And so what higher consciousness does is it relaxes the smooth muscle of the digestive tract and the respiratory tract. And so by going through and doing that, you're shifting out of fight flight, and you're starting to go a bit more into rest and repair. So for one, it reduces the tension, which will reduce like anxiety and things like that. It will improve some gut function, including lymphatic function. But because of how it shifts you out of the fight flight mechanism, it allows for more right brain thinking, like more intuitive, part of your intuitive mind starts to get stimulated, because when you're in fight flight, your side of the brain that processes the senses is heightened. You go in more into like your instincts than you really do like your cognitive processes. And so what happens is you really don't process things like you kind of should, because you're in red alert. And so for you to like really truly kind of process things, you have to do it in a place where you're not in red alert. And then to take it even farther, I heard Jung say this, that like sometimes the intuitive mind becomes like polluted by the instinctual mind. And so all that means is that your instinctual mind or your lower mind is always processing the senses, and your intuitive mind is acting on information other than your senses. You have things where you kind of know things, or you've had experiences, or you've put things together, or you've had realizations, or none of that is based on your senses. The senses are about kind of the here and now, and the intuitive mind, draws upon things that even happen in your dreams. Definitely interactions with the higher soul, experiences that you've either seen or say you grew up with. It's just tapping on to observations that are much bigger than sensory input. And so we are going to be doing a class in April that is about brainwaves and the vital centers, which is actually very Astara. The vital centers that actually that's directly out of I think the second degree.
Yeah.
If I remember right. There's these different centers like the thalamus and the cerebellum, and and Erlene kind of explains or gives a little phrase for each one. Like the cerebellum is the seat of instinct, for example. And so we are going to be looking at the physiological processes that agitate each one of those centers and calming them down to enhance brainwave activity, and then work with brainwaves. So basically, in a way, it's going to be a class for brain fatigue. And so, I'm not going to call it that, but basically it's what it is. And everybody has a certain degree of brain fatigue, but we're going to systematically like create a like little search grid and go through and treat it. And Good. So regardless of what the health issue is, because every kind of sort of health issue or system that's not functioning starts to cause malfunctions in brainwave activity. And so you can treat it from the body, or you can flip it and treat it from the brain and the brainwave activity. And so the vital centers are all tied to the Kundalini moving up the spine. And so there's just these different ways of opening up the spine and the spinal cord. And so we really had to do the base of the different classes that we've been doing. But now that we've established such a baseline in such a short amount of time because of Zoom, we're jumping into some things that I really didn't think I was even going to be teaching for still another few years. And so, the curriculum is really being laid out quite well because of Zoom,
Well, it's all very exciting, and thank you, Samantha.
It's really exciting on our end too. I never thought in a million years we'd be going at the pace that we're going. And it makes it so much easier to tie everything together, like doing things via Zoom.
Yeah.
And the ability to do reviews and study groups and everything. It's just, it's mind-boggling the things that have happened in the last year. Good and bad.
Yeah.
There's been some not so nice things too, but there's been some good things that have come out, and it's really. That's kind of what happens when there's an evolutionary thing that happens is there's growth, but then there's growing pains. And
where do you want to put your attention?
Yeah, but with so many people being sick and the economy being hit the way that it was, definitely growing pains. But at the same time, communication and interaction with people, it's changed very drastically in the last year. And so we keep trying to come up with better ways of putting out the information. And I mean, the things that we have coming in with like having the booklets be more interactive with like videos and things, it's going to be an exciting next 3 months or so. It's really putting all this together. It's one of those things where when I wake up in the morning, it's like jump up. Okay, we got all these things to do. Blah, 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 blah. Gotta get busy. Gotta get busy. And so
Good stuff.
it's going to be interesting.
Wow, fun too. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And Barbara, your hand's raised.
Hey, Miss Barbara.
Hey, Greg. One comment and two skin questions.
Yeah, fire away.
I feel like the work we did this weekend in class is still unfolding.
Yes, especially the work on Sunday. Sunday is, you know, I had that set aside for like potentially doing like an advanced psychotherapy class. And then, you know, when at the end of last year, when we split off the archetype class or the archetype component and you know, did the 1 day archetype thing, you know, because I taught archetypes before. It was a 2-day class. And then, you know, it's an odd subject. And so it's not always one that people pay that much attention to because it's so, I don't want to say out there, but it's a little bit out there. Although the times I taught, we did have big classes. But splitting it up and then doing the psychotherapy the way we did this weekend, I really liked it. I really thought it was a really good, solid class. I mean, I really, really liked it. And, you know, I should have probably just done it that way before, but I was trying to give too much of a general thing. And, you know, it's even me, I get caught in my head sometimes. And so that Sunday class, boy, when we popped that together and I was looking at the booklet even before the weekend, I was like, man, this is going to be a good class. It's really laying the foundation for doing some deeper psychological work that when we go through and we do the Saturday, what we did Saturday and then what we did on Sunday, it makes going in and treating conditions so much easier because of what gets unwound. You know, that ability to turn inward is just, I mean, it's key. Otherwise, we're just always so externally driven. We really don't get to process anything. And so, you know, I have tried to do that different ways over the years, even, you know, when I was doing therapy and clinical applications. And you know, some ways worked kind of good and some didn't, but I was really happy with what we came to and started doing on the weekend. You know, I had been using that clinically for probably the last 5 years or so that I had been doing therapy. And, you know, it came about from many years of not being super happy with my efficiency in doing, you know, one-on-one therapy in certain areas. It wasn't everywhere, but it was just, there was these couple certain areas that, like, you know, when there's really super hard, tough conditions to treat, you know, and you have those difficulties, that they really present as a time for learning. You know, you really can learn like things that work, things that don't work, and even it starts to change your perception as a therapist. And it really made me draw upon a lot of different things. And, you know, it always is interesting how things kind of keep coming back around to the will aspects and some of these situations. And, you know, I'd looked over some studies that, I mean, to be honest, that I had done that that didn't go well. Like, you know, we were trying to look at things or research something, and it was on psychosomatic issues. And I was just never happy with the clinical data that we generated. And then those last 4 or 5 years, I was doing therapy based on the failures in those studies. And I really kind of was starting to have some big breakthroughs on one-on-one therapy, and then just translated it in my notes. And then we translated it over to oils. And then yeah, it became the kind of the thing that we did on Sunday. And I've done it as part of a personal practice for quite a while. And the amount that I shift is, just internally, it's really kind of staggering sometimes, because like I'll do it in the session and I go, yeah, I feel good. But then all of a sudden I'll feel this like kind of shift happen, like even like a week or two later. There's been a couple of times where it's even like a month later. And it's really, I don't know, like I always just, as I sit and kind of watch it and contemplate it, it's like it feels like it's getting closer to like who I really am in the inside, and letting go of the external kind of, I don't know what you would call it. Like Jungian psychology, I think they would call it like the mask, your external kind of projection to the people around you and everything. And it just keeps getting deeper and deeper to that, having that union between the inner world and the outer world. And I don't know. I find it to be very profound for a lot of different things, relationships, spiritual practice, meditation, even my abilities as a healer. I felt really grew by leaps and bounds when I did what we did on Sunday. And so I think even from the single session, it will continue to work for quite a while, but it's one that you can definitely go back and revisit quite a while.
Oh, I will.
Yeah.
I definitely feel a shift beginning to happen, and I'm really grateful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good.
The skin things, I managed to get a case of winter poison ivy.
Oh.
And I'm doing pretty good ignoring the itches on my hands, but I feel like I have
Yeah.
spots on my face that are in the pre-breakout. Like my eyelids feel puffy and they're not broken out yet, but I just wondering if you have recommendations on.
There is oil wise, I don't know that you're going to find a whole lot of relief that way, but there is, like, if you go online, there is these kind of like, I think they're sprays or creams that you get from the health food store that are for poison ivy. And like you can probably just go on Amazon and find it, but a lot of them have this I want to say it's fit root in it. There's one plant that is so good at taking out the effects of the poison oak and poison ivy. It's in some of those sprays. If you want, I can try to go find it on Amazon and then we can email it to you. But it's one of the things that we used to have to deal a lot with guys and, well, men and women who are racing on mountain bikes, because they would be going through the forest and stuff. And God, there was this one woman, I felt so bad for her. She didn't even have to like touch the plant. She could just be like 5 feet from the plant and she would get poison oak. Her body got so hyper reactive. And so we would use that spray. And I used to make kind of like a liniment that was used that I would just have them like washed down with afterwards. And I want to say it's fit root. And it would be probably hard to find in any normal health food store. But since you already have it let's see if we can find a product that's already got it in it, because the extraction process takes a month. So, I mean, it's not going to be very practical for you. So I'll go online tonight and try to find it for you. And, if you do the Amazon Prime, you'll have it in a day or two.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's and if you're prone to that, or you like to hike or something like that, like I would take like a little small bottle of it, and anytime you think you're exposed, you just hit it right off the bat. And that woman who used to get poison oak, poison ivy all the time, I had her start using that on a regular basis. And I mean, she would be covered up, she would have long, tights on, she would have socks. She would go through an area and she said she didn't touch any vegetation, and she'd come back and she'd have poison oak, poison ivy. And when I had her start using this, she went years without having it. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, it doesn't matter what stage it is. But it just knocks it out. And so it's really amazing. I think I found it out of that old herbal book, Back to Eden. You know, that Jeffrey, is it Jeffrey Kloss? Is that who it is?
Jethro.
Jethro Kloss, yeah. And he's just like old school herbalist from the early 20th century. And I mean, it's just one of the remedies in there, and it works phenomenally well.
Thank you.
Yeah,
other-
you're so
The other skin questions for a friend of mine in her 70s with an autoimmune skin disorder, but she talks about her skin being very delicate and it tears easily.
yeah.
didn't-
That's something that definitely happens as someone ages. It can. The only thing that I've ever tried, and I don't know how well you can say that it worked, but we tried using myrrh with, because myrrh has like a toughening effect or a thickening effect on the skin. And, you know, sometimes people will get to where sometimes if they even just barely touch it or there's pressure on it, the skin will start to tear.
Yeah.
And so you could try myrrh, but
And would you use it in a lotion? Would you use it as a
yeah, you would use it. You can put it in an alcohol base, or you could put it like in a massage oil or a lotion. But yeah, their skin gets so thick. Let me see if I also have some notes on that. But I would say probably your best bet would be to start with myrrh.
Okay. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
You're so
Is there a list of essential oils that are toxic, should not be taken internally?
I am in the process of compiling that. Things that I would stay away from would be don't take hyssop internally, don't take rue internally, even mugwort and artemisia, wormwood, pennyroyal. You know, evergreens, like things like spruces and firs, they're not toxic, but they're not necessarily, there's not a lot of benefit from taking them internally. What else? Calamus, don't take calamus internally. But we are going to start talking about, you know, every week, you know, when we send out the newsletter, we usually have like an oil of the week. We're going to continue to do that, but what we're going to do is we're going to put out the information in the newsletter, but then I'm also going to do like a little video talk of about 10 minutes or so, 10, 15 minutes, that they'll be linked into YouTube, where I talk about the oil, that one oil in depth. And I'm even inviting some other medical aromatherapists from the industry to have those conversations with me, so we get multiple points of view about that, and, you know, just different perspectives. And we're recording our very first one on Friday. And so next week, you guys will have information about, you know, a plant, and then also it will be linked to a YouTube thing where you can hear like me and another person going back and forth about the plant. We're going to do hyssop first, just because we use it so much. And so we're compiling all that together for you guys, and we're going to be making like an interactive like booklet, so that you have the information that's written, and you can also have more in-depth conversations in the booklet itself for the different oils and applications and things. And so that's actually going to be starting next week. And so if you're unsure about things, then don't take it. You know, you can always run it by us here, but like the ones that I mentioned, those are definitely a no-no. And then like things like juniper and things like that, if somebody's pregnant, you know, you wouldn't want to do that. And so it's a lot of tedious work. And I am compiling the book when I can, but I've just got so many different things that I'm writing that one's going a little bit slower than I would like. So.
Someone I think is surprised and just wants to make sure hyssop is an herb is toxic as an essential oil?
Yeah, it's okay to take the herb internally, same with wormwood. But when it starts to become an essential oil, it becomes so strong that it's actually not good. Like if you got a drop or two in your mouth, it's not that big of a deal. But I would say just still not ingesting it, getting it down in the digestive tract like that. And so, these things can be fine herbal wise, but when you turn them into essential oil, it starts to change the dynamic. And so sometimes there are certain chemicals in it that are too strong to be ingested. Like it's okay to inhale, it's okay to go through the skin, but getting into the digestive tract is a little bit of a different thing. And so sometimes it can be too much, but yeah.
I'll just go to this one. I might have skipped one, but in a follow-up to the past weekend, is there an oil you'd suggest for depression or mood disorders in general?
Okay, so those are a couple of different things. So first, let's talk about depression. So depression, you can approach it from a couple of different ways. So one is depression. A lot of times can be, there's two basic types. There's one that's psychologically induced, and then there is one that is just physically induced. The body is tired. The body is run down. And so one form of depression, you can go through and you can treat it with like things like geranium and rose and Brit. They're really good, especially when it's more psychological in nature. And if you want to be pretty gentle about it, the sages always work, especially just regular good old-fashioned sage or Dalmatian sage. Clary sages, not so much, but the regular sages will work. They can be helpful with treating depression, but one of the best things that you can use for depression would be to utilize cinnamon, like cinnamon leaf, the cinnamon supreme, the tamala, cassia. And part of it is, it's for one, it's strengthening to the body, but usually psychologically induced depression is like basically too much time being introverted, turned inward. And cinnamon really helps a person to like turn outward. And then also it reduces sensitivities. Like if you think about times where you're depressed, you're almost like hypersensitive to what people are saying to you or how they say it, or if there's difficulties, things like that. It's just, it can be a little too much. And so cinnamon makes you a bit more outgoing and makes you a little bit more thick skin. Your skin is thickened. So the cutting words don't seem to hit you as hard. And so St. John's wort is always good. You have to be careful if they're on medications because it is a very good blood detoxifier. And so a lot of times the issue with depression can also be associated with hormones and just quality of blood. And so it helps to go through and purify the blood and release emotions and thought processes, thought forms. And so St. John's wort can be very, very good for that. That needs to be taken internal, like a couple of drops. But if they're on medications, I wouldn't have them do that approach just because it will drain the medications out of them and then make the medications less effective. Mood issues, as weird as it sounds, you a lot of times can treat the skin for mood issues, mood disorders, because it is tied to your immune system and your immune function. And so a lot of times with mood issues, I use African bluegrass, and you can mix it with just a little tiny bit of helichrysum, and then take salt baths or apply it to the skin like in a lotion or a liniment. And that will help shift the moods quite substantially. Geranium is also good for elevating mood. Rose is also good, and the citruses can be very good for elevating moods. So, you know, like lemon, orange, mandarin, tangerine, you know, grapefruit, um, you know, things of that nature. And so neroli can even be helpful, even though it's the flower. It still is very uplifting. And so citruses, rose. One of the things too is jasmine can be helpful for helping to tonify the immune system. And so jasmine can be used to treat depression, especially you know, after a woman has a baby, they potentially are exposed to postpartum depression. And really, that's just like the immune system gets really super depleted. And jasmine is what's used for that, and it works really super good for that. So like sometimes even when I'm starting to feel like a little tired, but I don't want to use things that are gonna keep me up or be too stimulating, I'll actually use jasmine as a way to tone the immune system, fortify the immune system without making it hyper reactive or hyper vigilant or keeping me up at night. Cinnamon will increase your energy levels, but at the same time, you know, you might, if you take it late in the day, you might have a hard time falling asleep because you're just not as tired as you were before. And so, you know, you can play with some variations of that. Yeah.
And just as a reminder, guys, you can always raise your hand or just unmute yourself.
Mhm.
And otherwise, like you're doing too, just type in the chat room here. Any recommendations for UTI tendency?
UTI what?
Tendency.
Tendency.
They tend to get UTIs.
Oh, I mean, I probably use eucalyptuses quite a bit. I would probably use eucalyptuses like in like salt baths and like massage oils, and do like self massage, like especially the hips, low back, like legs, especially the thigh and everything. And then I would take Moroccan thyme, a few drops a day in water for a good like 30 days. You know, I would take it kind of consistently for a little bit. That should wipe it out. And if it doesn't after 30 days, let us know. But like any eucalyptus, like Eucalyptus globulus, radiata, polybroct, out of those three, you know, do some like just, you know, kind of rub it in the hips, low back and everything, thighs, and then take the Moroccan thyme internally. And you can also rub the eucalyptus on your feet. I think that should help quite a bit. The other thing is you'll want to increase the amount that you're when you're urinating. Sometimes you might not be urinating all the way, you know, you might not be emptying out the bladder. And so if you're having to have like a lot of frequent urination, but you're not completely eliminating each time, you know, sometimes there's just a little bit left in the bladder and things. And so you could try using some lovage for that to help flush things out of the kidneys and improve kidney function. Lovage is really good for improving kidney function. Even parsley on the skin on a regular basis, you know, be it like a salt bath or lotion, liniment, that might even be helpful because it does stimulate the kidneys to function better. And so, you know, try that for 30 days and then see how that goes. And if it's not improving, then let us know and we'll come up with something. Sometimes I might have to give you like an herbal thing to do that you get from like the health food store rather than an oil. If an oil doesn't really produce a result, then I usually drop it and try to do something else. Like, so, if, you know, oils are great for a lot of things, but they don't always treat everything really well. And so if there's things that they don't treat well, then I turn to the herbal world. And so,
Hi, Greg, it's Miriam.
hey, Miriam.
That was my question.
Hey.
Yeah, I use an herb when I have a problem, but it's like a tendency.
So when you go to the bathroom, are you going like multiple times, like way too many times? And do you feel that you completely empty out your bladder? Do you have the urge to go kind of often?
No, it's not an infection. It's more like a real sensitivity. It's like and it might be one day and then the next day it's gone and then the next day it's there.
So what do you mean by sensitivity? Like it just feels irritated or
Burning,
burning?
but it might not even last a whole day.
You know what I would try is forget what I just said about all those things.
Okay.
I would actually try marshmallow root.
That sounds yummy.
Yeah. Well, it's not like marshmallows.
It's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a bitter.
Yeah. It's a bit bitter. And so I think marshmallow root actually might kind of soothe some of that.
Yeah.
And you could just get it at the health food store or on Amazon or something. And then just like if you get like capsule or tincture, just a dropper full or 2-3 capsules a day. And I think it might help. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're still welcome.
And Kathy, your hand is raised.
Hey, Kathy.
Hi.
Hey.
So we brought it to mind, I have a friend who constantly urinates. And she'll be driving and she has to find a bathroom, like almost like urgently, and it's all day long. So I don't know if there's anything I should.
Well, so with the constant need for urination, you really start looking at like, why is that happening? And so sometimes they could be under like prolonged periods of stress for a while and the body just goes into fight flight. Does she have any anxiety at all or anything like that?
No, she's one of those people. I wish I could be more like her. It's like she's chill and she's had it for as long as I've known her, which is years and years and years. It's just a constant thing that she has to deal with. And she tries not to drink water certain times because she knows it's for sure going to happen.
I would probably have her rotate between using like something like the higher consciousness or even just tarragon. Have her inhale that for 15, 20, 25, long, slow, deep breaths. And then at some point in the day, it doesn't have to be in the same sitting, but do the same with marjoram. Like go back and forth between the two.
With the higher
And-
consciousness, tarragon and marjoram, which two?
You could do either higher consciousness or tarragon,
Okay.
and then the other one being marjoram. So marjoram would be the constant. The other one, if you had to choose, I would do higher consciousness. But if you just were trying to work with things you have out of your kit, tarragon would do it, but higher consciousness much stronger.
So like just throughout the day when she feels the urge?
Yeah.
Or just,
No, you're doing this to prevent. So you're almost like doing treatments for this. You're not really looking at the symptoms on a daily basis. You're looking at like, okay, if we do this for a period of time, like say for 2 weeks, how did that change in that
Okay.
2 weeks? At the end of the 2 weeks, you're really you're doing a couple of things. You're taking tension out of the urinary tract, which is also smooth muscle, but also the digestive tract and the respiratory tract. And so you're shifting how her body processes information from the environment and how it interacts with different systems. So you're shifting the autonomic nervous system, and then the marjoram helps to calm down the adrenals, and it's very toning to the vagus nerve. And so what happens sometimes is over a period of time, the vagus nerve will lose tone, and then it will start manifesting as like frequent urination, or at least the urge. It could even manifest as like diarrhea. It could manifest as vomiting. It could manifest as like sleep issues. It could manifest as a bunch of different things. And so by going back and forth between the two, you're kind of toning the autonomic nervous system, which is the involuntary part of the nervous system, and you're helping her body to regulate both the digestion and the processing of water and urination. So if you think about it, when you're in fight flight, your body doesn't really assimilate nutrients like it should, because it feels like it's on red alert, and so it tries to retain some energy for either fighting or running. And then the other thing that it does is it tries to empty out the bladder, so you're ready to run or to fight. And so sometimes that urge is just that nerve just keeps getting irritated. It keeps getting stimulated to empty out, even though she might not have, a full bladder. The urge is there because her body is kind of in that fight, mechanism.
Well, it's funny now you say it, because she is really can go quick to anger, but overall she seems playful. So she has digestive issues as well.
So I would say that quick to anger is probably more her physiology than it is her psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Like she sounds like she's pretty chill, but she has this one particular area. And so that's probably her nervous system, like getting kicked into that. And so it should calm that stuff down. Like it should even calm down that anger component.
Oh, okay, be great. Now, a question about the lovage. When you were saying that's just good to clean the kidneys, do you take it internally or?
Yeah, you would if you take it, do it topically, it still works, but it's better to take 2-3 drops internally daily, like in water or juice. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, really super good for the kidneys.
Yeah, okay, because I sometimes have that. So 2 or 3 drops a day.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I'm usurping the time, but I'll tell you, I'm trying not to do the vaccine, so I focused on the immunity. I bought the kit and I have Monarda, but that Monarda, I can take 1 drop at a time and I mix it and all kinds of stuff, but it still kind of burns my throat a little bit. Is it like bad for me maybe, or that's the way Monarda?
No, that's kind of the way Monarda is a little bit. If it's like not working in water or juice, what you could do is put it in a little bit of like olive oil or something. I used to put them in like a little capsule with olive oil, and then like a drop or 2 of the oil, and then pop it and take it internally. So you could put it like in a little half teaspoonful of oil, or mix it in with like your salad dressing or something, and then eat it that way. Yeah,
I've been putting it with a heavy green smoothie that's kind of strong with a little bit of water and 1 drop.
Wow, and it's still getting you. Wow, yeah. No, it's good for you. It's just it's really strong, and it's really kind of sensitizing. Like if I get it on my hands and touch my lips will kind of go numb.
Oh no, it's like it follows me around. I wash my hands.
Yeah.
And I feel, honestly, on the one hand, if I were a virus, I would not want to be close to a body that is taking Monarda.
We were just in the middle of doing production. We were doing production all day, and there's this one oil that I opened up. It's asafoetida, and it's not something that's outside. It's in some of the blends, and it's one of those things where once it's opened and closed, like that smell just follows us around, and it's just like I can taste it in my mouth. I can smell it in other parts of the building. I just it follows you around. There's just some oils that are like that.
Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't like super sensitive to it, because
Nah.
I feel like it's got to scare everything away, to tell you the truth. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
And Heidi, you were unmuted. Did you have a question?
Hey,
or
Miss Heidi.
comment?
I think I accidentally did that. Sorry about that.
Hey Heidi, how you doing?
Hi, good. Well, now that you got me, I do have a question. I
Yeah,
was gonna
I
ask and then I,
clairvoyantly knew that. Like, that's why we actually
So-
unmuted you. So,
so here's the thing. Then maybe, I don't know. I feel overwhelmed with all of these protocols and all of these oils. And I
Mhm.
have some things that I really want some help with. And you've been really helpful, but I don't seem to retain which ones, like for my shoulder, what I should really do on an ongoing daily basis. And I don't
okay.
know, I don't know what to do with myself. And I feel like I have gotten it down to, I have a core tension in my body that I need to unwind that will help these other, my hip and my shoulder and stuff. So if there's something that you could answer in that realm, it would be great.
Okay, so first off, just because I already know a bit of background on your shoulder, how is your shoulder doing?
It's moderately improved.
Okay.
It's still sometimes really restricted in movement, and it fluctuates throughout the day.
Okay, and are you able to move past the 90-degree
No.
motion and go? You still have an
No.
issue with that?
Yeah, I can go
So you're
45
still
to 90, but no more.
okay. So you're still needing to take pressure off that rotator cuff, and so because that's the nature of an impingement is, and it's something that it takes a little while, even with manual therapies and things. It takes a little while to unwind the shoulder girdle so that you take pressure off, and so. With that, when you work on it, is there any emotion or thought process that comes up? Because, we were looking at like just the timing of when you started treating that.
Right.
With your-
Yeah.
with
I
your
am
child's passing.
definitely,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm definitely having grief come up more.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I would keep going back and forth between unwinding the shoulder girdle and then unwinding the grief that comes along it with it. And so here's the thing is like there's different ways that you can approach the grief. Like you can do the sadness and grief blend, and do the thing where it's the soles of the feet, the Ming Men, which is opposite your navel, the back heart, the crown. That's one way. Another way you could do it with just inhaling even ginger lily by itself without even directing it will help release like sadness and grief and sorrow and things. And then another one that's really good that we haven't talked about quite in that way is lemon verbena taking internally really can let go of like deep unconscious like sadness and sorrows. And so it might even be that you do a little bit of a multifaceted approach for that. I don't think it's super conscious for you. Like I think it's just like things that are just kind of in the unconscious and
Yeah, I agree.
because whenever I talked with you about it, you're at such a good place about everything that happened with Finn.
Yeah.
And but I think there's just some unconscious things that kind of creep up and start to come to the surface, like in the body though. Like it's not even in the psyche so much. And so I think it taps into some of the primal things about raising a child and surviving in nature, and so I think all of those are things that could be on the table for you, and then constantly trying to unwind the tissue itself. And so you could use, I think I had you using marjoram at first. And the reason for marjoram, it's kind of like what I was saying before to the other person is I like marjoram for things like this. Sometimes it's usually what I start off with because it's very antispasmodic. It shifts us out of the fight flight mode, and it's very toning to the vagus nerve. which helps us to go into deeper rest and repair, which really helps us to access more of the intuitive mind. You know, it takes you out of that instinctual thinking and helps to shift over to that more intuitive part of the brain, which would help you process things. And
Yeah, I'm
so
using
as
a lot of
things-
marjoram in the bath
Yeah.
and in the spray.
Yeah. And so you could start augmenting that also with like basil and petitgrain, just because, you know, an impingement by its nature, your shoulder tightens up to try to protect that joint. And so that could be another one that you could use. Like you are using the marjoram, you could rotate it in there with basil or petitgrain. The other thing is, you know, I know you have some poplar, and so I
Yeah.
would even do poplar about, you know, like sit and think of the shoulder, but also just think of Finn.
Okay.
You know, I would say just sit and just do a contemplation of just, you know, not thinking about negative things or anything, but just sit and just kind of think of Finn a little bit and inhale the poplar and let some of the traumatic feelings that are buried in the body like come up and out. And poplar is really good for that. It's
Okay.
really super good for that.
Okay.
If you don't have your poplar with you, you could do the same thing with helichrysum.
Yeah, no, I
that
have
would-
it. It's good.
Okay, so both of those would be very, very good for that. And,
Okay.
you know, because that was such a traumatic event that, you know, I think you have processed so much psychologically, but there's just that physiological response to some of these things that, you know, it takes a while for sometimes the body to kind of catch up sometimes. And you know, especially something that was so traumatic that some of it's just in the physiology. Like, you know, it's,
Yeah, I think so too.
yeah, it's I mean, trauma is has an incredibly profound effect on our physiology that really kind of, it's almost like trauma hasn't been given its due of the impact it has on physiology. You know, when I first started treating trauma, I was approached by a group of psychologists, and you know, their language was that you know we were talking about children and young adults that, you know, had been like abused and things, and the thing that they said was like it basically changes their physiology. And you know, it's maybe not quite as potent as we get older when trauma happens, but it still has a really big impact on physiology, you know, especially how your brain functions.
You
And
know,
so-
this weekend when I took the psychological healing class of yours, but I had also another workshop going on at the same time that was called addressing pre-verbal trauma. And so I was
Mhm.
doing the oils
Yeah.
with psychological healing and a very intense immersion in pre-verbal trauma, which is all about physiology. So I'm not surprised about this,
Yeah,
Um, but it's boy, it's really it's hit hard.
you know, the thing that's very interesting with the pre-verbal approach is, you know, like when somebody hears that, you know, I think of, oh, it's when you're a little kid, but pre-verbal can also be as an adult, that it's just like you haven't processed what happened so that it can be expressed. And so pre-verbal can happen still when you're 60, you know, or 70 or whenever. You know, it's just something that happens and you haven't processed it enough to be able to verbalize it.
Right.
And so, you know, I think that pre-verbal stuff can stir stuff up that's even from, you know, adulthood, not just the childhood times.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, well, thank you.
Well, good. Oh, and you know, the stuff we did on Sunday with the transmuting the will for the healing process, very good for taking body tension out, by the way. So like when you say there's like a tension that you're trying to get rid of, that's like if you keep doing the thing from Sunday, It's really good for reducing the body tension.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
Body
Thank you
tension
so
that's
much.
not necessarily muscular, but there's a tension in the body. I'm always blown away after doing what we did on Sunday, how much tension I was holding, and it manifests in the tissue, but it's really more like an inner tension. You know what I mean? It's just this weird
Right.
tension that you can't quite put your finger on, and that's usually the will. It's tied to the will somewhere.
And that's called transmutation.
It's
of the
what we
will?
did on Sunday. It's just like the whole Sunday, everything we did on Sunday.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
great. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
My eye swelling has come back. I'm not sure what to ask at this point. I'm staying away from meditation. I'm feeling a little bit better with the steroid creams, but still itchy. Also worried it could come back. If Greg has anything about the Kundalini syndrome, clearing that, or thoughts about dealing with
What-
allergic reactions.
What's the eye issue?
Eyes.
Oh yeah.
Doctors still think there is an allergic thing.
Yeah, an allergic thing.
But wondering if there's anything.
Andrew, how many times did you do that one meditation where you're bringing it up to your ajna? Do you remember? Like 10 times, 5 times, 20 times?
I did it twice a day for about 2 weeks.
Twice a day. And like when you were doing it twice a day, like for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
30 to 50
30 to 50.
breaths.
Yeah, 30 to 50 breaths. And you've never had that happen before, right? It's just been, this is the first time it happened when you had this thing happen.
I've never had eye swelling or any serious allergic reaction.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes the thing is like, even though you've stopped, like sometimes what happens, I mean, I'm not sure completely that this is what this is. I mean, it's a very odd situation. And so that's why I keep wanting to explore the thing that happened when you're doing that practice is that you're like, when you're doing that practice and you're doing the breathing and moving it up and then bringing it to the ajna, the thing is you're setting a pattern in the body. And so even after you've stopped, there's still like a pattern that's happening that you're trying to break. And so Brandy has a copy of the Lord's Prayer.
Brandy's not on. Oh,
But-
he said yes.
Yes. Let's have you actually go through and do the Lord's Prayer with meditation with because the thing is like you'll kind of undo that pattern and set a new pattern by following the meditation in that manner. And so you'll kind of undo the pattern that got stuck. I've only seen it people who have done that kind of meditation before. I can't remember what kind of meditation they call that, but there's where they bring it up to the ajna like that. And I've seen definitely some health issues that came from it. And so I would say let's just try setting a new pattern. Right, a new pattern. And then this won't be a quick thing, but I would almost say like let's probably have you do like maybe 3 or 4 drops of frankincense internally. And the reason why I'll have you do frankincense is it's not so much for the inflammation, but it makes the body like less reactive. You know, like it makes the immune system not quite as hypervigilant. And then let me just look at you real quick here. Let's also maybe have you inhale the marjoram, and you don't really have to direct it to anywhere, but inhaling it would be good. You know, maybe just keep your awareness on your lungs, then keep inhaling it, be aware of your digestive tract a little bit. And let's just pull the body a little bit more out of fight, flight, and just tone that vagus nerve a little bit and see what happens. And so maybe send us an email or you know, next Tuesday, you know, come back on again and let us know how just the 7 days treated you by doing those couple of things, and let's see if it happens. But I think if we can set a new pattern in your body, that can probably be alleviated. And so
He's asking, so do the same meditation, but say the Lord's Prayer with every breath?
no, you want to do the meditation, you know, with Master Choa. Follow that. Don't do that one meditation where we come up to the ajna. Like that, like I suspect that actually is probably what caused the issue. It's just too much of a coincidence that you're ending up here, and then you have all the swelling going on like that, and so it sets a pattern in the body. So I would drop that meditation and just do the Lord's Prayer meditation to set a new energetic pattern, because that's the thing when you go through and you do a meditation where you're setting a pattern by going here, you know, and then, you know, doing something repetitively, it sets like in kind of an energetic pattern that then the energy starts to shift in your body like easier in that particular pattern. And the thing is like, even though you've stopped, it keeps coming up and getting stuck up in this particular area. So we want to kind of flesh it out so that it doesn't keep getting so super congested up in the ajna area, and help set a new pattern. So, I mean, I would do that Lord's Prayer, you know, maybe 2 or 3 times in the next week. You know, but do the Lord's Prayer. Don't do that old meditation with saying the Lord's Prayer. Do the Lord's Prayer from Master Choa. Yeah.
Greg mentioned in the pain class, he would look more deeply into my trigeminal neuralgia in my sleep after traveling, wondering if you had a chance to do that.
Oh, we just got back late last night. And so is this the one that had from Anthony that, how is it feeling with the stuff that we'd already been talking about? Has that shifted, changed, or stayed the same?
It's pretty much the same, and I'm getting close to possibly scheduling surgery. So before I
Okay.
make that final decision, I want to.
Let me see if I can do that tonight or like in the morning. We were traveling. We didn't get home until late last night, and so we've been on the road about the last.
Oh no, I knew you were traveling and you had a
Yeah.
class this weekend. So
Yeah. Let me try looking at it, and you did the goldenrod on the nose.
yeah, I've been doing that daily because before I hadn't been doing that daily. So I
Uh-huh.
do that once a day.
And what else did we have you doing? I think didn't we have you doing one other
Marjoram.
thing?
The
Marjoram.
sinus protocol of marjoram.
Right. And did that shift or change anything at all, or
No, I was doing that regularly and it didn't shift. It's just so puzzling, you know.
Yeah, it's a pretty stubborn case.
So now I have another question while I'm if it's not.
Sure. Right away.
I had an MRI of the heart, and I was told my heart is enlarged.
Okay.
A bit worrisome. He didn't seem to think it was frighteningly enlarged. He seemed to know why. So I don't know if there's anything that I could do. I mean, it seems like oils wouldn't affect that. I just don't know.
The thing that I would probably do is I would probably put you, like if I was in your position, I would take coenzyme Q10 or ubiquinol, which is
I take that daily.
how big of a dosage are you taking?
I think 30 milligrams. It's pretty a high, more expensive type. It's not cheap.
Right. I would probably increase the dosage.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then
And by how much? How much do you think I should take a day?
like, how big of a, is that just one capsule or?
It's a chewable thing that I get from Full Scripts.
So is it one chewable or two
Mhm.
chewables?
One.
I would probably bump it up to like 3.
You know how much that would be in milligrams or anything? So I could translate it into.
Well, usually I use the gel caps, and so I'd have to go back and look at notes, but I usually have people get the bigger gel cap and then take that in internally. And I mean, sometimes we put them on 6 or 8 a day, but I think given you and your health, probably 2, 2 would be better, but 3 would probably even be better.
Okay.
And so, and then just because of everything going on, remember there's that herb, I think we talked about it, Arjuna.
Yeah, for some reason, I was taking it and I asked him just because he's kind of guiding me right now. And he said he sells it for people with heart failure, but he didn't recommend it for me. So I'm a little bit,
Okay,
felt
if he did, I would let him be the primary guy. So like if he doesn't think you need it, then but keep an eye on that, and you can always integrate it a little bit later. But
well, see, he has me on a beta blocker and my pulse can go down to like pretty much 50. And normally without a beta blocker, my pulse is 60. And so Arjuna seemed to have it go down, and on top of the beta blocker, I just so confused and I don't want to do any damage. So
right. Yeah, stick with where you're at then, and then just maybe
Okay.
increase the ubiquinol.
okay.
And
Thank you.
I'll look into the trigeminal neuralgia a little bit more and see if we can't come up with a different thing. So
Well, thank you so much.
yeah, you're so welcome. Yeah.
I recently found my balm of Mecca. What can I do with it?
What's that?
Somebody found their essential oil bottle up. They have a balm of Mecca oil from you.
From me? You use that as an anointing oil. So you would put it on like the forehead, or you could put it on the heart, and you could use that for like healing or for like meditation or prayer work.
For the citrus, inhalation or internal for depression?
Inhalation would be okay, but I'd probably take it internally.
What oils help us fall asleep?
Oils that help you fall asleep are things that usually are relaxing or sedating. So, I mean, right off the bat, marjoram is really good. Lavender can be very good with sustained inhalation. Tarragon can be very good, but also I'd start looking at things like spikenard, vetiver. Even rue can be very helpful in helping you to fall asleep. And hyssop, I would still throw hyssop in that realm. Long, slow, deep breaths, I'd usually have you laying in bed doing that. If you're having a hard time because your mind just won't let go, you can start to use something like mugwort or artemisia, just to help the brain disengage a little bit. And so, yeah.
Is doing both marjoram and higher consciousness on the same day or alternative days?
Same day.
How do we use sadness and grief blend?
Well, you can use it a couple of different ways. And if you're having somebody use it, you can have them, just inhale it or take a couple drops and like rub it on the heart. But a way to accelerate that is to inhale it and then put your awareness on your soles of your feet, and then your Ming Men, which is the backside of your navel, your back heart, and then the top of your head, and then let go. And that really helps you to process and let go of the grief. So, yeah. So one of the things that we kind of explored a little bit on the class this weekend was to use a variation of the materialization breath, but actually for healing. And when we do it with this, you're not necessarily visualizing the outcome. Part of why that breath works so well for materialization, and why it works so well for connecting with a spiritual teacher or deity or your tradition, and why it works for healing, is a lot of times what happens is we're disconnected with the thing we're trying to interact with, and so we're kind of going back and forth between the inner world and the outer world. Like if you say you're on an iPad and you're trying to pull off 8 digits that you're putting in, like, on, say you're trying to track a package for FedEx, and you go, okay, it's 84329784, and you go from one, and then you go to the other screen, you go, wait, what were those numbers again? You're trying to do it from memory. We kind of do that a lot with a lot of other things. We go from the inner world, we go to the outer world. We go to the inner world, we go to the outer world. And so, a lot of times we have to have a bit of reflection before we have, more expression out in the world. And so, a lot of times when we're having difficulties working through an obstacle or dealing with a psychological thing, it's because we haven't been able to integrate it into the heart, and we're not processing it in the inner part of ourselves. It's just still lingering out in the external world, in the realm of the senses and the instinct, and hasn't gotten in the inner world where we can start tapping into the intuitive mind. And so a lot of times, if we can get it in, we're wired to go through and process it and let it go. The trick is to get it in. And so the idea would be to hold the issue, be it like how you feel about yourself, how you think about yourself, issue with a particular person, issue with a particular pattern in your life, a time where maybe you got traumatized, to get it in and to help process it. You get it in the heart kind of starts to clean it up, but then you're able to start to also process it in the intuitive mind. And remember, the instinctual mind, or the lower mind, is in the realm of your senses, right? It's processing all your sensory information. When you start to shift over to the intuitive mind, you're starting to tap into pieces of information that is beyond your senses, beyond your sensory information. And so it is a different way of processing something, and it really helps to let go of that lower thinking that can happen. And when I say lower, I just mean like the concrete mind, based on your experiences and things. And so, this is why it works so well for materialization, is you're starting to tap into that other part of the brain. But part of what happens is you're also starting to stimulate the pineal gland and the little energetic seed or atom that's in the pineal gland that is tied to your mental faculties or your mental blueprint. And it's how we process information from the higher soul. And so by going through and doing this, you're starting to connect to the situation externally, but you're also starting to connect more to the higher soul at the same time. And really the soul kind of processes and figures things out much quicker than we do with our lower mind. And so the goal is to kind of get these things connected and then let them be themselves, let them work it out. And so this is the purpose for a lot of ceremonial healing, in different traditions, especially in the indigenous cultures. And so we did it at the very end of the class on Sunday, and I would really like to revisit that for not necessarily for materialization purposes, but for healing purposes. And one of the things that I do on a regular basis when I was doing a lot of one-on-one healing is at the beginning of the session, I would actually do a form of this for a couple of minutes before I would actually do the healing. And it always seemed to make things go much, much easier. And I seemed to have much more inner guidance on what to do when I was working on the person. And so I've used this a lot for self-healing for myself. And so what I would like to do tonight is a bit of an exploration, we know the techniques. If you're new, we're going to go through and explain it again. But one of the things that I'm really wanting to do over the next few months is really help explore some of the things that we're already doing, that we already know how to do, and just show how different applications can produce a result, or you can use the same techniques to do different things to produce results in other ways. And so we're actually probably going to start up another little study group. Like this one's just very straightforward and clinical, but for the older students, we're probably going to start doing a thing here pretty quickly, where we start looking at the plants, the essential oils and the plants affiliated with the oil, as they do in the indigenous practices, that certain plants are considered plant teachers. They teach us so much about ourselves as we go through and interact with them, because of how they change our mental faculties and how they shift us into more of the intuitive mind and shift us out of our physiology somewhat. And so I've been compiling a list of some plants that, it's things that you guys already have and are using, but to start looking at them from the point of view as almost like a teaching tool to help us better understand ourselves. And so, I'd like to start a little bit with that tonight. And so with that, let's start giving you some choices of oils that you could choose from. And then we're going to do this little exploration. So single oils could be calamus, ginger lily, hyssop, mugwort.
Lord. Hyssop, what was the other one?
Mugwort.
Mugwort, thanks.
So that would also include artemisia, neroli, patchouli, lotus, rose, sweet Annie, and tuberose. And then blends, aloes and myrrh, if you have that, a chakra root cleanser, emotional release, lymphatic blend, sadness and grief, Shanti, Solomon's hyssop, and then Sharanagati, Sharanagati. Okay, so if you don't have one of those oils, let us know. Probably not for this.
If we have several of them, are there some that are best?
The blends would probably be better, except for rose, ginger lily, lotus, tuberose. For myself, I usually use tuberose for what we're about to do, or ginger lily. But any of the ones would work that we just talked about. Okay, so this is what I'd like you to do. Before we start to do this, I want us to do this just based on maybe self-esteem, self-image. And so all you're going to do is you're just going to sit and just reflect on yourself. Reflect on how you feel about yourself. Just put eyes on you. So close your eyes And just reflect for a moment or two. Areas that you feel good about yourself, areas that maybe not so much. Now, the thing that I'm going to have you do is you're not really visualizing a goal. You're not really visualizing anything. You're just holding an image of yourself. Just reflect on some image you have of yourself and keep your awareness on your heart. Keep your awareness on your heart as you kind of sit and reflect on yourself. Think of times when you maybe are hard on yourself or you're being critical with yourself. Think of times where you even feel good about yourself. Whatever it is, just hold it in your heart. Okay, so as you're holding it in your heart, you're going to take the oil and you're not even going to do the movement yet. You're just still thinking of yourself and just start taking long, slow, deep breaths with your awareness on your heart. With whatever oil you're using, just long, slow, deep breaths. Just inhale, exhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Do 3 or 4 more times. Keep holding the image of yourself in your heart. Think of a time when something difficult happened or something traumatic happened to you. Not so much about the event, but just think about the time where something kind of traumatic or painful happened. It's not so much about the event, it's more about just you. Continue to inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Think of a time where somebody has hurt your feelings. Now, this is a little bit of a variation of what we did on this weekend, but we're just trying to integrate something into the heart a little bit deeper. So this is a little bit extra from things we covered on the weekend or another time. Your awareness is on your front heart. You've thought of these different images. Now, move your awareness through the body to your back heart. Still hold the image of yourself. Yeah, bring your awareness back to the front heart. Still hold the image of yourself. Keep taking long, slow, deep breaths. And just be still. Keep your eyes closed. Just let go for a moment. Hold yourself in your heart again. Just hold your image of yourself, the thought of yourself in your heart. Just let whatever imagery comes up, just let it come to your mind. Think of times when you've been happy. Continue to inhale. Think of times when you've been not so happy. Not looking at the details of the situation, just think of times when you just haven't been a happy camper. This isn't about the situation being right or wrong, it's just about how you perceive yourself. Think of times when you've done things and you've been quite successful, whatever they are. Keep taking long, slow, deep breaths. Think of times where you haven't done so well, where there's been failure or where you just missed the mark. Not really going into the details, not really judging yourself, just times where you really just haven't hit the mark. It happens to us all. Gently move your awareness through your body to your back heart. Continue to inhale. Move your awareness back to the front heart. Okay, just be still, be aware. Just let everything go for a moment. Just be still with your eyes closed. Okay, now open your eyes and just look at me for a second. So again, you're gonna have your bottle in front of you, but this time you're holding it to your chest. And again, just watch me for a second. You're going to inhale, hold your breath, move your head up, exhale. Hold your breath, head down, up, exhale. So this is one cycle. When you go like this, you inhale, and then you move your head up, and you exhale, and you bring your head back down. That is one breathing cycle, right? So let's go ahead and have you put the bottle to your chest. You're not thinking of any imagery or anything. We're just going to do the breath. Begin to inhale. Hold. Move your head up. Exhale. Hold. Move your head down. Inhale. Move your head up. Exhale. Move your head down. Inhale. Up. Exhale. Do about 6 or 7 more. When you're done, you just be still and keep your eyes closed. Hold the image of yourself in your heart again. Let's just see how that feels. You still hold the image of yourself in the heart. Begin inhaling again. You're holding the image of yourself. Just a few long, slow, deep breaths. Move the bottle to your chest and do 8 or 9 of the breaths where you inhale, move your head up, exhale. We call that a materialization breath. Here it's more of an integration breath, but same idea. Continue a few more times. And just be still. hold the image of yourself again. This time, let's think about like the time where there was trauma, even if it wasn't with you directly, that something that was a bit of an issue for you. Not trying to fix it, just trying to perceive it. Just hold it in the heart. Again, chin to your chest, hold the bottle up. 8 or 9 of the integration breaths or materialization breaths, whatever you'd like to call it. Now just sit with the image of yourself, hold it in the heart, see how it feels. Okay, what do you notice? What do you notice about yourself and what do you notice about the process?
You guys can
Yeah,
unmute.
unmute and go ahead and share.
I actually feel good about myself.
Yay, that's what we were shooting for. You
Oh, I
know,
wasn't
because
sure.
I'm
You
sorry.
know, like part of what happens is, you know, people will refer to it as different ways, like we kind of fracture a little bit, or interactions between different pieces of ourselves or different events, like the space in between them almost gets a little compressed, and we start to compartmentalize ourselves, our perception of ourselves, and our thought processes. So in the shamanic tradition, the thing that they're talking about when they talk about soul retrieval is it's these like little compressed pieces or these little fractured pieces. It's not really that you're retrieving part of your soul, is you're kind of making your psyche like interact with each other to a higher or greater degree. And so it's really kind of a form of like what they would call soul retrieval. And it's you know, bringing in these pieces that got traumatized, or certain tendencies where we maybe pick fights with ourselves or being hard on ourselves, and starting to integrate them. And so yeah, like I think the more that we do this, the more that, you know, you're aware of like, oh, I'm doing this, and it becomes easier to shift or change a behavior. But it also realizes that sometimes we're actually, you know, say like somebody has been kind of hard on you, or was really super critical of you, and especially if it was somebody close, and then they go away and you go, well, they're not here anymore, so I'm going to pick up where they left off. And we continue doing this pattern with this person, you know, especially when things happened when we were young, and we just kind of continue with the same pattern that they left us with. And so it could be an event, it could be a person. And so, yeah, Miriam, I'm kind of curious if you're available. How do you feel, and what did you notice?
Hi.
Hey, I'm calling on you because of all your background with Catholic.
I was fell on the floor just then. I feel a little softer.
Yeah, softer. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, at first I wasn't sure if you were saying, like, what was it I was holding in my heart? Was I holding the trauma in my heart, or was I holding?
Yeah, first I usually have people start with themselves, but we usually go to traumatic events or painful events or things where people have a hard time with themselves. Like, you know, you start criticizing yourself, or you're like, oh, why do I do this? Why do I do that? You know, any version of that. Like times, you know, the thing is like when we get our feelings hurt, you know, there's a part of us that is upset at ourselves for not protecting ourselves. You know how like you would almost get upset at like a parent when you're a child, and it's like, why did you protect me like that? Like there's this comedian that he tells the story, but it wasn't really a funny story. I mean, he was trying to make it funny, but you know, he was traveling through Europe, and I think they were in Italy, and all of a sudden there was all these like wild ponies, and he woke up his daughter, and they went outside, and he goes, let's go look at the ponies. And you know, they're wild, and so they go and they get close to those ponies and everything, and he goes, go ahead, touch the pony. And so, you know, she's going to pet the pony, and the pony reached down and just bit her on the arm. And they got inside, and he looked it up on the internet, and it's like, apparently these ponies are kind of mean. And she's like, why did you do that to me? Why didn't you protect me? And he thought he was taking her out to this like amazing experience, and she got bit on the arm. And so, you know, he was going on about how he was trying to have this wonderful kind of magical experience, and it just ended up that his daughter got really upset with him for a period of time because he took her out to get bitten by a pony. And so, I mean, I laugh, but it's like, how many times has that happened to us? How many times have we gotten upset at ourselves for not protecting ourselves, or you know, a friend, or when we were young, our parents? And so I was just kind of curious of how everybody's feeling, but really what you're doing is you're integrating these pieces. And so, you know, sometimes what is traumatizing, you know, we have the ones that we go, I know these traumas, but then you'll start having these just little weird like flashes of oh, I moved away from my friends and I didn't get to spend time with them anymore. And I was lonely sometimes. And then this happened and that happened. And I had a teacher who said something really mean to me, whatever it is, just whatever kind of starts to come to your mind, you can just sit with them and go through and integrate these pieces. And so over a period of time, you're taking away some of the things that are in the psyche that are agitating, because your psyche is getting to process them. We talk so much about the physiological emotions and thoughts, but here we're really going, okay, but there's also part of the psyche where these things happen and we want to be able to process them from a psychological point of view. And some of that's the heart and some of that is the right side of your brain, relaxing the left side of your brain to let go of the sensory information and getting it over to the right side so we can process it and let it go. So you usually feel better about yourself, like you say, softer, you have a little bit of a realization of yourself, you become a little bit more tolerant of yourself. Sometimes you become more motivated to address something. Sometimes we want to make changes in our life, but like addressing it actually kind of unwinds a little bit of a trauma or a painful event that we're avoiding the event. So we avoid the behavior that also is entangled with it. And so we're kind of disentangling all these different pieces. And so I was just curious with all your background and pathwork and everything, how that was feeling to you. And maybe, you need a little time to process it. So it might even be something we talk about in a couple of weeks or something, but
Sure.
it's a kind of like, it's basically you're doing a kind of soul retrieval is what shamanic people would say.
So I do work a lot with people who are trying to deal with some kind of trauma, and sometimes it's the smallest thing, as you say.
Yeah.
You go to show a
Sometimes
horse and
it's-
you get bitten.
Yeah,
Sometimes it just happens, and because the mind isn't able to process it, it makes up a
Right.
story.
exactly.
But
Beautifully said. Beautifully said.
yeah, but what's interesting is if you can hold the space,
Mhm.
and as you say, hold it in your heart, it gives there's something about that space. It gives you the opportunity to integrate it, and there's just so much power in holding the space.
Right. There really is.
Yeah. So it's amazing work. And so when you have us holding the space like this and enhancing it with oils, it's just like you can feel the body shift because it's in the body.
Yeah, it's in the body, and whatever like story or issue is in the psyche, it's like you're getting them both with this. And so it could be integrated with other healing modalities. It could be energy or just psychological processing. A version of this is what we did when we were treating the people with multiple personality disorders. Is we were doing some form of this. We weren't having them be as active, but basically we're doing the end result of what we're doing here is what we were doing with them. And like I said, we had 9 cases where the diagnosis got lifted. They had been diagnosed for more than 10 years. Under psychiatrist care, under a psychiatrist. And so, we all have some sort of like little piece that we're checked out from or dissociative from. And it just really helps to integrate these pieces so that you can process it. Because that's the thing, it's like sometimes you can't process it because you can't touch it. Like it's like you're looking through a window, but you can't quite get at it.
Or you won't touch it.
Yeah, or you're like going, nope, I'm gonna turn my back to it and I don't see it, so it's not there.
Because I'll probably die if I go there.
Yeah, a lot of times it feels like that.
Yeah.
You know.
And when you hold that space, you realize you're still there. And and it's like venting. It just
Yeah.
moves.
Yeah. Like a perfect example is, especially like if something was upsetting when you were young, you might be angry at a parent, but it wasn't okay to be angry at your parent because that was also you're going to get in trouble, or it felt life-threatening because then you didn't feel safe. And so you might have emotions that are from, childhood that, if I'm angry at my parent, that means I don't love them. And both feelings can be there. You can love a parent and be angry or upset. And as a little kid, we don't realize that we can be both. As an adult, we kind of get it intellectually, but it's hard to integrate those pieces. And so, this helps to almost live with that, where I love this person and I'm also upset with this person, or this person hurt me, or this person made me sad. Doesn't mean I love them less. It just means that there was also a hurt part too.
And it's very threatening to be angry.
Yeah,
with
it's super
parents.
threatening.
Well, imagine.
Super threatening.
Imagine if you consider that your parents are doing something that is really off. How frightening is that?
Yeah. And so, anybody else want to share?
Yeah, Kathy, you were unmuted, and then I don't know if we'll have time, but Shannon.
Hey, Kathy.
Hi. I had the feeling the minute we started, like I was a wounded child. I was surprised
Yeah.
because my self-esteem and my mental and my
Right.
mind isn't so, and a lot of tears, just soft tears.
Yeah.
And then
Beautiful.
it was actually surprising. And then after the materialization, and you had us pause, I was peaceful. The tears had stopped. Now they came back in, places here and there, but definitely a feeling of peacefulness, a bit of all that.
Tremendous. And so, good. Those soft, gentle tears like that, those are definitely very healing. Like, whatever is being processed is being processed. And sometimes it's not even in our conscious mind. It's very unconscious, but you'll notice like afterwards you go, I feel better. I feel lighter. I feel more outgoing. I feel more whatever.
Well, it
And
seemed
so-
dreamlike, like it more
Yeah.
not so real. It was
Perfect.
definitely dreamlike.
Yeah. Perfect. That is so perfect.
Now to continue this practice, because it really made an impact. Would I use something else or the same kind of?
No, you use the same thing. And it's more about like the things that you just kind of keep reflecting on.
Mhm.
Like, I tell this story, like, I went through and did inventory many years ago of just like different parts of my life. I just was like, let's think of like the parts, like times when I was, having, difficulty or not difficulty. And I got to this age of like 9. And I couldn't for the life of me think of anything traumatic. And it was really upsetting when I would sit with just that age. I would sit and do contemplations with that age. It was worse than some of the painful things that I was very aware of. And then I realized that at that age, the house that I grew up in up to that age was in this town with this little town, and all my friends were on that block, all the kids I would play with. And then we moved, about 15, 20 minutes away, and all of a sudden I didn't have my friends to play with anymore, and I was learning, to interact with some new kids and everything. But several times I went back to try to see my friends, like I'd have my mom take me over there or whatever to play with those kids. But I was an outsider, and like I didn't get to interact with my friends, and they were doing things that I didn't know about, and they very much treated me like an outsider. And I didn't think much of it at the time, but as a kid, you don't go, well, this hurts my feelings. You just go, well, okay, then I guess I'll see you around sometime, or you're just doing that. And looking back, my feelings were super hurt, but at the time I just had no idea. And so when I went through and did that, God, I feel like this weird pressure leave and this like emotional weight leave that I just couldn't even verbalize it. You know how Heidi was talking about being, trauma that's like pre-verbal. I wasn't even aware that it was an issue until I went through and I did like a version of what we just did. And all of a sudden, God, I feel tons better. And so, we're going to have these things that just pop into our head or a memory or something, and just whatever comes up, grab it. If not, just keep thinking. You can use the same oil, but just keep thinking of the different parts of your life or different times, and then do the practice. And then next week, I'm going to augment the things that we're doing now with doing some things to kind of soften up and loosen up the left side of the brain so it goes even deeper. So we're going to actually take this component and go a little bit down the rabbit hole a bit and augment it with things that we didn't even talk about in the class. And so I think I need to jump off and jump into that other meeting. Yeah, so sorry, you guys, I do have to go, but I really am looking forward to doing this next week with you guys. So if you can practice this, the recording will go up, or you can just do it on your own. And then next week we'll go through and we're gonna practice doing this. And I really would like to work on just how we feel about ourselves and self-image and things like that, self-worth, and see how this impacts you guys. We'll do a little exploration and we'll go from there.
One
So,
very quick question. Should you do the front to back as part of the practice?
yeah, that just helps to integrate and
Okay.
transmute and integrate and transmute. And so if you do that a couple times, it will be deeper. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Greg and Sam. Bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.